Welcome to Papa's Workshop. Do you need a new workbench in your shop and the lumber prices have you down? Well, today I'm going to show you how to build this workbench very cheap. In fact, this one was nothing but scraps that I found around the shop, so it didn't cost anything. I bet you can do the same thing in your shop, so let's get started. A day in the shop with Papa in Papa's Workshop. To support my channel, please go to patreon.com/Papa's Workshop. In today's video, I am building a new workbench. This is super cheap and it's very strong and sturdy. In this video, what I did is I went around my scrap bin and I pulled all of the 3/4 inch pieces of plywood that I could find. And then from there, designed the workbench. There was two things that I needed to have. The tabletop is actually a slab door. That's actually less expensive than plywood and it's thicker. Now the good thing is if you shop the big box stores, oftentimes you'll find one damaged. And if you can get it damaged, that's even better because you're going to save a ton of money. Now I had an extra one around the shop, so it didn't cost anything. But as you see, as I start to cut the material, I'm just cutting different pieces at random lengths to be able to get the sizes that I need. Now the first part of this project is I'm cutting all of the legs to length. I need 4 of these pieces 4 inches wide, and I need 4 of them 3¼ inches wide. Now while I'm cutting out this workbench, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell notification right down there so that you'll be notified on the different videos that I'm uploading. Now this video is concentrating on the build of the workbench itself. In the next video, I'm going to go ahead and add 3 drawers into this workbench. You're not going to want to miss that. So please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the little bell notification, and look, while you're there, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Give me a like so that I can continue making these videos. Now let's get back to cutting out these parts. The first thing you're going to notice is I have a lot of varying lengths and widths of different scrap pieces of plywood. Again, the whole idea behind this is find something in your shop that you can use and make it work. I want this very cheap, in fact, virtually for me, free. And I know you can do the same in your shop. Prices at the lumber yard are just absolutely out of sight, and I did not want to put off building this workbench anymore. I need the room, I need the space, and I need to be able to put the tools onto this workbench. So I did what any other woodworker is going to be able to do, is go through the scrap bin and start pulling every single scrap and cutting it to size, making it work. And on the good side, I'm using down that scrap bin, making it smaller too. Now the only thing that I had to buy were these wheels, and I got these from Harbor Freight. Other than that, I've got my 4 pieces that are 4 inches wide. I've got my 3½ inch pieces, and you can see there's holes in it, and these are just leftover pieces of scrap. And of course, I need the 4x4 pieces at the bottom. Now, let's go ahead and glue this together and nail it. All I'm doing is just using a butt joint here with the glue and the nails. And I just put this right on top, nothing fancy at all. Just get it aligned and even, and then I'll nail it into position. And I'm wiping off that excess glue too, because it's squeezing out. Now for my CNC tables, I actually built the legs where it had all 4 sides. But I really don't need that for this type of a table. And this works really just as well, and it's just as strong because everything is going to attach to these legs. And this height is going to vary. That's why I didn't give you the height. I want mine the height of the table saw. In your shop, you may want the height of your workbench to be a little bit different. And the reason I wanted the height of the table saw is because this is multi-purpose. If I need to have a outfeed table to be able to support the big full sheets of plywood, well, I've got a table that is perfect. I can just roll it over near the table saw and I have my outfeed table. Now these small blocks are 4 inches by 4 inches, and they're designed to be able to support the wheels. And all I'm doing is just putting the glue on this and nailing it in. Now, this was a little bit awkward to do this on top of the table, so in the next one I went ahead and put this on the floor. Made it a whole lot easier. The entire strength of the table really depends on these legs, and that's why I'm just spending just a little bit of time with the glue and nailing it in. Now, the nails that I'm using are actually 2-inch nails, longer than what I need, but my other nailing gun is actually on loan to my son, so this is the one that I had. It was either too small of a nail or too large of a nail. So I went ahead and used this one, and this is a 16 gauge 2-inch nail, so you have to be real careful because it has the potential of coming out the side. The most important thing that I want you to see is that it does not have to be fancy. You don't have to use fancy joinery. You can just butt these joints together and they're going to be super strong. It doesn't have to look pretty in the shop. It just has to be strong and functional. Now, these have the sharp edges on the corners, and if you wish, you can take a round over bit in the router and just use the trim router and soften those edges. And that's something I may do before I paint it. But just wipe off the excess glue, and then I'm going to go ahead and set these 4-inch by 4-inch block onto the bottom and nail it in position. And like I said, doing this on the floor was a whole lot easier. So I moved the camera over so that you could see this a little bit better, and I'm just shooting a couple of nails into each side, and that's all the support that it needs. Between the glue and these nails, it has plenty of strength. For all of you just getting into the woodworking, this is going to be the easiest way to build your first workbench. Now that all the legs are finished, I went ahead and attached the wheels to this, and you notice even the bolts are all different. I just went through that scrap bin and found odd ones that would work. Now, this is the slab door that I'm using. This is a 32-inch by 80-inch slab door. Now, this particular one is hollow core. Now, if you go to the big box store, you can easily pick up the solid core doors. Now, both of my other workbenches are solid core doors. Now that the legs are finished, I need to go ahead and cut all of the stringers. And again, it was back to the scraps to cut everything to size. Now, what I decided to do, because of the size of the material, is just use this to 3 1/4 inches wide. The width is all depending on the size of the door that you get. Now, I made mine where it's a little bit narrower than the door itself, but again, that's a personal preference. You can make the width of your table any size that you wish to do, up to the size of the tabletop, or in my case, the door, and it will work just fine. Now, I need 4 of these, so I went ahead and had those cut. I'm also marking this up 6 inches from the bottom. You can make this really any measurement that you wish. But the whole idea behind it, you want to make sure that it is nice and square so that your table does not rock. Now, it's real easy to check for square. Put these pieces in exactly where they need to be, and once you have those in place, then you can take the tape measure and you can measure from corner to corner. If you get the same measurement both ways, then you know that you're square. And then you can just screw it in. Now, in my case, I am not using glue for this part. Reason being is, at some point in time, I may decide to change the configuration of this table. If I do, all I need to be able to do is unscrew it, make the changes that I want, and screw it back together. And to me, this works a lot better not gluing this part of it. Screws are going to hold just fine, and this is still going to be a very sturdy and strong table. The glue is not going to make any difference. The screws that I'm using are 1 1/4 inches long, and these just happen to be the drywall screws. Once I finished the top, I went ahead and positioned the bottom one and did the same thing. I'm just going to screw it in place. I do want to check one more time to make sure that it's perfectly square. But I'm going to go ahead and attach one screw first because that's going to hold it in position, and then from there I'll just double check. Now that I know that it's perfectly square, I can go ahead and finish putting in all of the screws. Now I'm putting in 4 screws on each side, and that's plenty to be able to hold this. And that'll also keep it from twisting and turning as well. Because my shop floor is actually a little bit rough, and as I roll this around the shop, it takes a little bit of a beating. And with this secured in this manner, it will hold up just fine, and I don't have any type of problems at all. Well, the ends are completely finished now, and now it's time to go ahead and grab some more of this plywood and make the long stringers to be able to establish the length of this table. So back to the table saw, I went to be able to cut those, and I'm going to be cutting 2 for the back, 1 for the bottom on the front side. All of those will be 3 1/4 inches wide. Now, since I'm planning on putting the drawers in, I needed to build the face frame. Now, because I'm using nothing but scraps, this is a very untraditional way of building the face frame. But I went ahead and cut out some 2-inch strips to be able to establish that. And the piece that went between the drawers actually going to be the width of my plywood. I have 2 pieces of plywood together. Technically it's 3/4 of an inch, but it's actually a little less. To attach these long stringers, you have to use the same exact technique. You have to make sure that this table is square. And I'm measuring from corner to corner again to make sure I have the exact same measurement. Now, doing this by yourself is a little bit of a challenge because you don't have anybody holding that one side so you can shift it to make those small adjustments to get it square. So the remedy to that was to grab a clamp and put it down, and you can see it clamped to the table in that bottom corner. And let me give you a little bit better look at what I did. So in absence of having an extra person in the shop, the clamp is my partner for this. It's holding the table so I can shift it and make that adjustment. And again, once I've verified that everything is square, I can just go ahead and take the screws and screw this into position on each end. To attach the rail and the stiles together, the best method is to use the pocket hole screws. And today I'm using the Armor Tool pocket hole jig to be able to put the holes into the stiles. Now, what I really like about this jig is the vacuum attachment. This does 2 things. It makes it where it's virtually dust free, and 2, it helps to hold the material in place. Now at this point I have just about finished drilling all of my pocket holes, and if you look at the workbench, there is no sawdust at all. So this vacuum attachment is extremely effective. I really like that about the Armor Tool pocket hole jig. Now, like I said, to make this face frame, I'm just using some very unconventional methods. But this block is going to be able to create my appearance that I'm looking for on the front side, and it's going to be able to hold everything in place on the table legs itself. And I'm just going ahead and screwing in all of my pocket hole screws to be able to hold it in position. And to keep it from moving, I just have a clamp, and it's not going to go anywhere. In addition to that, I'm putting some screws right into the table legs itself to be able to hold it in position. So even though this is not anywhere near a traditional face frame, it's going to work very well, and from the front side, when you look at it, it's going to look like a perfectly normal face frame. Only this one is going to be a whole lot stronger. Now you'll also notice on the rail I have 2 screws in that to hold it in place, in addition to the pocket hole screws, and then I'm putting some additional screws in the stile. That way it's not going to move and go anywhere. Now again, I'm not using any glue for this, and that's on purpose because one, it's really not needed, and two, I may change the design later on. Now, as far as the stiles for the two center pieces, they're actually very narrow, and the reason they're narrow, they're actually the width of two pieces of plywood when you put them together. And that will later, in the next video, you'll see how that works to be able to have that flush to be able to attach the drawer rollers to. But as far as these stiles, I centered them into the opening. I also made sure that the opening was perfectly square using the same method, measuring from corner to corner, and then I screwed these into position. So I'm going to have 3 equally spaced drawers on this particular workbench. Now that I have everything exactly in place, I'm going to go ahead and put the clamp on it so it's not going to move. I'm going to double check the other side just to make sure that it's square, and then it's time to screw it in position. Now, of course, at this point, I'll go ahead and do the same thing with my other small vertical stile, and then I'll attach the opposite end the same way as I just showed you. And then this face frame will be completed. And for that matter, the entire workbench is done. All I need to do is pull this off of my workbench that I'm working on, set it on the floor, and put my door slab on top for the top of my workbench. I do not even screw the door slab to this base. It's not necessary. Thank you for watching the video today. I hope you learned a few things. And this is a very, very easy to build workbench. In fact, this actually qualifies for the beginner series. So it's very inexpensive, very easy to build, and I hope you was able to learn something. And if you did, as a reminder, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and the little bell notification. I'm building those drawers next, and you're not going to want to miss out. So until next time, I look forward to seeing you in my shop. This was a lot of fun to build this workbench today, and I can't wait to be able to have the drawers in it. Now I'm using this for some CNC machines. I'm also going to put the sanders on here. It is going to be a very useful table in the shop. In fact, I may later on put some shelves down at the very bottom, and this is going to be a multi-purpose workbench that'll get tons of use over the time. I hope you plan on doing the same in your shop.